Don't focus on those green beans. I'm learning as I go, but it's a season for everything. So these, these are going to be going off now, as the winter
Greens?
comes. This is lettuce,
Oh, that's
bok
lettuce.
choy. This was a strawberry bed. This season's over. See the broccoli growing?
Yeah.
So, and then over here is cabbage and greens.
So you manage all this yourself, or do you have somebody come?
No, I do it. These are the peach
Ooh,
trees.
you got the fruit trees
Yep.
too.
And then I have a plum tree and an apple tree. No fruit yet, because they're just getting to the point where I'm going to start bearing fruit. So it takes time.
Ooh, there's some big old bees. That's crazy. So I gotta ask, you a former athlete, still look like you in great shape. Layla wanted me to, she said, ask Curtis, how is it being married to me? I can only imagine being married to, because I'm the fighter in my house, but
Right.
you married to a former fighter, somebody that's driven and got that fight. How? How y'all do it, Curtis?
Yeah, man. It's number one, you gotta have confidence in being a man, number one. Having a strong woman, and trust me, strong in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of quiet confidence.
Okay.
And I don't have a big ego when it comes to my family. It's one thing being an athlete. You go, anything you're doing sports-wise, you feel like you're the best.
Right.
Can't nobody beat you. But at home, I know my role as a man, and and it's not about sticking my chest out. And if you got to stick your chest out, then you ain't the man in the house. Right. And Layla's also, I like to say she's a real woman, old school, nurturing. So I don't have that. I think I'm all that. Layla does what she does in public. When she comes home, like I tell her all the time, I wish people can see what I see, because it's like she has so many different hats and she wears them at the right time, if that makes any sense. I don't get the Layla that the public get.
Right.
I get the Layla that no one sees. I get the nurturing Layla, baby, you hungry?
Yeah.
Bring me my plate.
Right.
Don't want me eating out.
That's that's a lost art these
Don't want me
days,
eating out at different fast
bringing
food
plates.
places. Yeah.
That's a lost art.
Yeah, nah,
And I thank God my wife do the same thing.
Yeah, she'll bring me my plate. Don't want me eating out in public. Layla has this thing about who she is as a woman.
I respect it.
You know what I mean? She knows that women, and I'm not just talking about little girls. I've seen women older than her come up to her, hug her, and have that respect for her. And she doesn't take that lightly, man. Like, she literally takes that like God put her here for a reason. She understands that, and she will never compromise her integrity for money. And we know, especially in this time, that's easy. And you can almost, and there's some things people will be like, oh, that ain't that bad. But for her, she understands what message that's putting out. So to be next to that, man, it's amazing. That's why I say, man, people have this thing, because I had a thing. I'm like, oh, man, she beautiful, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. And it's like, man, you actually pretty cool. You actually pretty chill. You pretty laid back. You know what I mean? So, yeah, to me, she's every woman.
I got one
Thank
more
you.
for you. I'm gonna let y'all go. How do you protect a former world champion boxer? Like, how does that
This
work?
is my security. What you talking about?
Okay, well, so let me know something then. Welcome back to another episode of The Art of War. And I'm extremely excited about our guest today. She doesn't do a lot of interviews, so we're happy to have her on the show. She is a 2021 International Boxing Hall of Famer. She's a 4-time world champion in 2 divisions. She's a broadcaster, a host, an author, a highly sought after public speaker with messages about the champion mindset and how to reinvent yourself. She's also a health and wellness expert. She's a wife, she's a mother, she's the daughter of an icon and the humanitarian, the late great Muhammad Ali. I want to give a warm welcome to the show today to the one and only Laila Ali.
Thank you.
Well, Laila, this is a special one for me. Anytime I get to interview somebody that I grew up watching, man, it's just special for me. I just came from Roy's Ranch, and I'm a kid in a candy store, so I'm excited today. And thank you for opening up your beautiful home to us as well. I know you don't do a lot of sit-down interviews, so we're honored to have you. Why did you agree to do this interview today?
Well, Mr. Andre, because number one, you're amazing at what you do. You're a fellow fighter. And I think that, like I said first, you do a really good job doing interviews. So every time that I've had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time with you, I've liked your energy. And, how could I say no?
I appreciate that. What is life like for you right now at this stage in your life?
Life is great. For me, my family comes first. I grew up obviously with Muhammad Ali as my father. He wasn't always home. And I knew growing up that I wanted to be a very hands-on mother. And that's something that, is a priority for me, being a mom, being a wife. Obviously, I have a lot going on when it comes to business, my own Laila Ali lifestyle brand, and I'm very hands-on with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my passion. I was an entrepreneur before I started boxing, so I kind of just went back to it now. But just having kids, I have a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old, right? Just got my son a car, teaching him how to drive.
my
My daughter's a
goodness.
teen, going through all the girl stuff, preparing dinner every day. That alone will keep you busy. Then with everything else that I do, traveling for speaking and just endorsement deals, I'm just getting ready to shoot a new show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that you'll hear more about that. So revving up to get busy again.
Exciting. Well, you have no shortage of things that, as you just mentioned, that's going on in your life or things that you can get involved in. But when I thought about reaching out to you, I was like, man, I don't really, like, Laila is out there in the spaces that, the public speaking and, you have businesses and cookware and all the stuff we just mentioned, but I don't see you doing a lot of interviews, or I don't see you in the public space outside of business very much. Why is that?
Well, I'm a homebody, first of all. So I rather be home. Like,
Okay.
I rather not go anywhere. Like, I have no desire. So obviously, I lived in LA all my life, right? I grew up with the most famous man in the world as my father. I like my privacy. A lot comes with that, it comes with that fast life, being out there, a lot of, fakeness and just all that. I'm just not with that. I'm a real person, so that's not really my vibe. So just being able to spend time with family, friends, prepare meals. I'm that house that people come to. I'm gonna cook, do all of that. That's what I like to do. Anything that I do publicly is strategic.
Okay.
It is because it needs to be done, right, in order to further whatever it is that I'm doing. Like, for example, when I knew that I was going to come out with my cookbook, Food for Life, which is a passion of mine, cooking, I was like, let me go compete on Chopped, on the Food Network. Let me go get myself in that space so people can see me that way, see me as something other than a fighter. I don't really care to be on the scene just to be there. I got invited to everything when I lived in LA,
Right.
and I just didn't really go. And I think that, like I said, as I'm getting older now and settling down, now may be the time to start thinking about doing my documentary, my movie. That's been offered years ago. But I was kind of just like, that's not really something that I'm ready for now. I feel like I have more to do. But I definitely want to do it while I'm alive.
Right, that's
Not
right.
after the fact.
That's right.
Right? So those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about now, not just being out, being busy just to be busy.
I love that because I'm very similar. I know how to turn the switch on and do what I need to do, but I'm really a shy person by nature, and I really don't like a lot of attention. But I really don't like the fakeness either. Like, I just can't stomach
I
it.
can
Like,
tell. That's why I like you.
yeah, I can play in it, go to the dinners, do the stuff, but you're probably not gonna catch me there. But I like that. Where
And
did
you're a
you,
family man.
and
you're
I love my
married.
family.
So you have no business being out there because you know what all comes with that.
Yeah.
So you do what you need to do, but I got that vibe from you.
And I know you got like big entrepreneurial energy. When I read your book, and we're gonna get into that in just a second. But where did the strategy come from with how you assess deals, what you agree to and what you don't agree to? How did you work that out and decide, okay, this is what I'm about? It's not about the money. That's not my brand.
It's about the money and some other things,
Okay.
okay? Like, we all need to provide for ourselves and our families, but it can't be just about the money, and all money isn't good money, right? So that's something that I had to learn at a very young age, because obviously when I decided to start boxing, I had the discernment at a very young age, 17, 18, to know, okay, this is gonna be a big deal. Muhammad Ali's daughter coming into boxing. I knew my dad wasn't gonna necessarily like it, and we can talk about that later. And I knew the public wasn't gonna be ready for it. And people will try to get you to be something that you're not. So I, from a very early age, set my boundaries. This is who I am. I'm Laila Ali. I'm not Muhammad Ali. I'm not gonna rope a dope. I'm not gonna call out rounds. I'm not gonna talk about my father every single time. I love my dad, don't get me wrong. He will always be the greatest of all time, but I got my own thing going on, right? So I had to set those standards. I had to have my values, you know what I'm saying? And, my priorities in place, because to answer your question, that's how I make decisions. It's like, you have a business, you have to know, okay, what's your mission statement? What's your vision? What's your brand values? All of these things. It's the same way you kind of live your life. So if I have goals, is this going to help me reach my goal? Is this deal positive? Does this make sense? You know, so if somebody comes to me with a deal for alcohol, first of all, I don't drink alcohol. Second of all, that's not my brand. I'm not, and I do care about being a role model and how I, you know, carry myself. So I'm not going to be doing, you know, all these junk food lines and all these things just because they offer me a lot of money, because it's happened in the past. Right. So those that do, their mission may not be health and wellness, so they're okay with that. Right. You know, that's not my thing. So, you know, that's pretty much how it is. But you have to know what you stand for. And you have to know, you know, what your non-negotiables are. And then it's just easier to make decisions. And of course, having a team. You know, I've had some really helpful people in my corner for many years that if I don't know, I'm like, this is what I'm thinking, and I'll bounce it off of them. Because I'm quick to say no. Sometimes they have to be like, no, no, no,
Right.
Layla, wait,
Think
wait, wait,
about
wait, wait,
this.
think about this. Because I'll be like, no, you know.
Right. I love that because, you know, we'll get a little bit more into the entrepreneurial spirit that from what I've read, you've always had. But do you feel like that was innate? Like you just had a knack for like wanting to have your own and building something on your own and, you know, understanding numbers and how money works. Like that seems to have been something that you've always kind of have and you just cultivated it over the years.
I'm bad with numbers.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. But that's okay, because I know people who are good with
But
numbers.
that's when the team
Yeah,
come in.
I understand dollars, but I'm saying there's so much more to it. I would say that I remember from the age of maybe, when I said I'm bad with numbers, I'll forget my own age. I'm like, am I 45 or 46? I'm always a day off or I almost missed this interview by a day. Like, wait, I thought we were doing this Sunday.
You told me that when I came in the
I'm
door. You was like, I'm so glad it was on my calendar.
I'm so bad. So I remember when I was probably 11, I was like, I'm gonna start a business because I want to. Now, mind you, I have money. I lived in Malibu, you know, but I wanted my own money. And I said, I'm gonna start a little cleaning service. And I had flyers and I went around the neighborhood, $20, I'll clean your house, kid, you know, nobody hired. I remember one guy called and I came to the door, he saw I was a kid. He was just like, just wipe down the counters, and he gave me the money and I left. Yeah. And that was my first business though, thought at that age. I mean, I can imagine my daughter now at 13 trying to start a little business and going in strangers' homes. Right. So then I had Layla's nail studio by the time I was 18, but I had to take the bus after school across town into the hood at night. You know, I think it was like 6 to 9 every night. Most kids aren't trying to go back to school after school. That's right. And every day on their own. I signed myself up. I had my mom give me the money. I'm gonna go because I wanted to be independent. I wanted to move out the house by the time I was 18. I had this plan. And you read my book, you know, there was a lot going on that made me want to get away and made me want to be independent and have my own. And, you know, I think that was the drive. It wasn't just, oh, I just want to do nails. It was like, what does this mean to have this license, right, to have a clientele, to be in control of my own life? And I'm still that way now. I like to be in control.
What a time to be alive if you're a sports fan.
We've got NBA, college hoops, college football, and NFL.
Get into all the action right now with our partners at DraftKings Sportsbook.
If sports betting isn't in your state yet, you can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code SMOKE, bet $5 on any wager, and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code SMOKE, only at DraftKings Sportsbook.
So Layla, you have a wonderful book out that you wrote back in '02, was revised in 2017, called Reach, Finding Strength and Spirit and Personal Power. And this is the book right here, y'all. This is a very, very powerful book. Man, please look this book up. Go get this book. I thought I knew a lot about Layla until I read that book, but what struck me in the book, and I ran into the same thing as I was trying to just unearth my story and tell it the right way, is in this book, you do a great job of speaking your personal truth, your family truth, but then also the truth about your late, great father, Muhammad Ali. I sense the honesty, but I also sense the respect. How did you do that? How'd you toe that line?
And yeah, and it was toting the line, because to tell my story, I had to tell my mother's story, which she didn't want, and I tell part of my father's story. And you always have to be careful about how you talk about my dad, because he's the greatest, you know, but he's not perfect. Nobody is, and that's okay. My father, being who he was traveling the world, humanitarian. He was gone a lot, right? And there's 9 of us kids. I'm the youngest girl. He has adopted a son.
So you're the baby.
I'm the baby. People assume that we all grew up in the house together. We did not. So I had one sister, Hannah, who's my oldest. sister, older sister, should I say. But you would think I was older. But that's who I grew up in the house with. Then you had May, the twins, Little Muhammad. Those were his first kids from his first wife. And then when he and their mom got divorced, he married my mom, had Hannah and I. And then you have Mia, you have Kalia, and then you have Assad, his adopted son, who's now the youngest. So we never grew up in the house together, but they did come over for summers. So, and I saw them, but it was not like, I'm close probably to two of my sisters.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, maybe one actually. One, Mia, my sister in Jersey. Her and I are like this. Hannah and I, we're kind of like, like how brother and sister can be, like get on each other's nerves but love each other. But those are the two. And the rest of them, we don't have a super close relationship.
I was gonna ask you that because I don't always see a lot of stuff with y'all together, and I wondered about that.
No, yeah, people ask that. And then, I have one of my sister's sons now is fighting.
Yeah, and I didn't see you at the fight.
Yeah, people assume. I don't even know when he's fighting sometimes. Yeah, so, but I mean, what can you do?
It's just kind of like
Yeah, he's doing his thing. I wish him the best, and he knows because I told him, if you ever need anything, I'm here.
That's good.
That's me. Like, I'm not the type that's gonna be on you, but if you got to call me if you need
I'm
something.
here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You kind of went where I was going. I was gonna ask you to take me back to some of those early memories at Fremont Place, the gated community in the middle of Los Angeles with your father, your mother Veronica, and Hannah. You talked about how there was constant traffic in the house. On any given day, you may have a Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, John Travolta, or somebody like that. You talked about it in great detail about how it made you feel, like you were an object, like that's Ali's daughter. Tell me about that period in your life.
Well, I mean, like you mentioned, so many people were always over, and I wasn't the only one. So it was kind of just like, it's not like here at my home where it's a quiet home. It was more like a public place. So it doesn't make you feel secure as a child, right? When there's just always people around. Especially me, I was kind of to myself, kind of shy, and my dad loved attention. And he loved people,
Entertaining.
Oh my God, everywhere we went, it was just like he had his briefcase with his magic tricks, and we were gonna be there for a couple hours.
Right.
Oh yeah, he pulled out his and I saw as a kid, like, here we go, it's all the same tricks. But he would also have pamphlets about Islam that he hand signed.
Really?
Because he started having his Parkinson's, and he kind of started getting slower. But not only that, he never wanted to cut off the line for the autographs. He wanted everyone to get one. So, when he had to go, it was like, well, here's an autograph. He could pass them out quick if they were pre-signed. He would spend hours pre-signing those, and that would be in his briefcase. So as a kid, that wasn't always fun to go with dad, and get stuck. And I was always kind of like, I don't want to go with daddy. I was more of a mama's girl. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
You talked about that office, his study, and how a lot of the people would gather there. And then he would call you, and Laila, come on and sit on my lap and smother you with kisses. And you were like, I do not want the attention, and I don't like the kisses.
Yes.
Man, I can only imagine like what that felt like. Obviously, I didn't grow up like that. I had my struggles, but it wasn't that. We didn't have a lot of, and I'm a naturally private person, so I can only imagine waking up, coming out of my room, and anybody can be downstairs.
Absolutely. And having nannies and staff.
And the nanny thing,
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the life I knew, right? But I was okay. Like I had people taking care of me. It's just that, all kids have to grow up with whatever environment they're born into.
That's right.
And it's like, it's not something I really complain about. It's just kind of painting the picture that led to where things led, right? But again, I remember just being young and always feeling like I wanted to get away. So I always sought after people who didn't know who I was, meaning Muhammad Ali's daughter, didn't know who my family was, weren't necessarily affluent. Because, with that life comes this family and their children, and they're wealthy, and they'll put you together because like with like, but I was always trying to mismatch.
Right. That's not what I want to be around.
I was mismatching, yeah.
Right. I watch that with my kids. Like my kids respect what I've done, but they're not like overly impressed with it. They honor me and it's a blessing, but I could tell that they're not like, they kind of shy away from that too. Like, being known as Andre Ward's kids. And I've tried to like figure that out throughout the years. Like, okay, what is that? Like, how should I respond to that? What should I tell? And I've just kind of let them do their thing, but then I'll see them, I overhear them bragging about me or something like that. So it's like, I can only imagine what that struggle is like, having a famous parent and then everybody knows about the parent and they're bringing it up to you. And it's like, do you want to be my friend because you like me? Or you trying to get some information about my family?
Yeah.
it can be tricky.
Yeah, everyone's had a different experience. Some people like attention. Some people like,
True.
yeah, some people are like, yeah, that's my dad, you know.
True.
What can that do for me? Whereas I have a different kind of confidence, I think, in myself that is like, what can I do for me? And it's okay. I mean, it's not a secret, but that's not what I lead with, right? Who I am, where I come from, because then with that comes a lot of expectation, sometimes perception. You know, people are making assumptions. Right? So I would like the opportunity like anyone else. Like, let me show you who I am when I first meet you, not walk up with you assuming, making certain assumptions.
Right.
That's just general. That's just my character. You know, I think I've balanced it pretty well. And with my children, what I do is that now they got their grandfather is Muhammad Ali, their father is Curtis Conway, their mom is Laila Ali. And you know, they don't really think anything of it. Just like you said, we're not a big deal to them. They're like, what do you guys know? I mean, even when it comes to athletics, oh, you know, they think they know more than us. We're like,
Like, you
oh,
do
that's
not
just,
know.
yeah, that's just kids. But, you know, they respect what we did. But at the same time, I've always told them, because when they were really young and didn't understand, when I was doing more on TV, because I've done so many things outside of boxing that have made me more recognizable than in boxing. Because when I was boxing, people were like, oh, that's cool, you're a boxer. They like the idea that I was a boxer because I don't look like what you think a boxer would be, and women don't box and all that kind of stuff. But they didn't actually see me fight because a lot of my fights weren't even on big televised. You know, some were, but Dancing with the Stars and, you know, all these other shows that I've done, you know, and shows that I've hosted, American Gladiators and, you know, being on OWN, and people know me from those things.
Right.
So when people recognize me, I never know what they know me from.
Right.
So I would tell my kids, I would say, when people come up to me, I say, you know, mommy, people know mommy because my job is on TV, right? And they're like, yeah. I said, so it's not a big deal. They just know me. So when they see me, they're excited and they just want to come say hi. I said, just like when you see people that you saw on the shows that you like, you say, oh, there they go. But they're just a regular person. So I would explain that. So they're just like, oh, okay, that's just someone who knows mommy from something. So they don't think of it as any big deal.
See, that's what I'm working on right there. I'm trying to get on that level where this boxing thing, though I always honor it and appreciate it, it gets further and further in the rearview mirror. It's like, oh, he did box too, but look at all these other things that he's been. I mean, you've lived many different lives, it seems like, from the time you retired until now. I mean, it's just, I love it, and it's just very, very powerful. Speaking of assumptions, I always assumed that you were a daddy's girl. Don't know where that came from. I just assumed it. And obviously you loved your father, but you said that was more Hannah, your sister. You were a mommy's girl.
I was. You know, it's kind of natural. I can't explain how that happened. It's the same with my kids, you know, one mommy, one daddy, you know, and you kind of just have that for the most part with most families. But I think that being that I was shy and private, and being with daddy meant that I was not gonna have privacy. It was kind of like I didn't really want to go be around him, you know. So is you know, when it came to being around other people. But then as I got older, I didn't have my mom either, you know, and that hurt me because I got pretty much abandoned by my mother. And that had a big effect on me, you know, so but we'll talk about that.
Yeah. So your mother, Veronica, and your father, they met in '74?
I don't know. I told you about me and dates. You
Yeah,
know.
okay.
Is that
I'm
when?
gonna go
Okay.
off my notes. We're gonna trust my notes right now. So at a charity event in Zaire, Africa, for the Rumble in the Jungle, and they got married 3 years later, and it didn't work out. From what you remember, what worked about their relationship, and then what didn't work about it?
I don't really know. I know that my mom divorced my father. She's the only woman that had ever divorced him. And he was madly in love with her, and she's beautiful. I mean, my mom is gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous. And I
She
think
took care of herself too.
yeah.
I mean, even back
Oh,
then,
yeah,
you
yeah,
said
yeah.
she was
Oh, yeah.
always working on herself,
yeah.
singing, working out.
And just taking care of her body in terms of eating right. You know, that's how I learned, right? My mom is always taking care of herself. But I think that he fell in love with her beauty first, right? Which would be hard not to do. And she was very, very unlike all of the other beautiful women who were using their looks and kind of in the fast lane. My mom was still, you know, a young, sweet girl. And, you know, she was so young. I mean, when she met him, I think she was like 19.
She was young
And imagine Muhammad Ali wanting to marry you at 19.
at that time. 74.
crazy,
Yeah.
right? Just swept her off her feet. So she was a baby. So that I can look back at now, just kind of how some of the things went, a mistake she might have made as a mother, and just never really got a chance because she was in school, medical school, when she met him. She was going to medical school, and he talked her out of that. Like, you don't need to go to school. She's super smart. She had, scholarships to Harvard and Yale, and yeah. And but if you read about her, just be, oh, she was a model. But she was doing some modeling back then, and that's how she met him. But she was so much more than that. So she has since, just I want to say in case I don't come back to it, she has since gone back to school, got her license,
Really?
yes, I got her doctorate in psychology, and she's doing that now.
Come
And I
on.
supported her in that.
That's beautiful.
So I'm proud of that. So yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I try to stay out of their relationship and their business, although I know the history because there's so much there. And my dad with the children and the wives and the women. I mean, I think it got to him, being Muhammad Ali, being handsome, having all these opportunity with all these women, and I would say now he would do some things differently.
Right.
You know what I mean? In terms of just infidelity and all these different things, yeah.
I'm gonna ask one more question about the marriage. I know you said in your book that it was hard for your mother being so just hungry for life, curious, talented, gifted, to be a subservient Muslim wife. Like that structure was hard for her. But when they met, I think I read that Ali said, well, do you believe in God or something like that? And she was like, yeah. He said, you're already a Muslim. So don't. So they didn't really like talk about, is this life, what's the lifestyle? Is it gonna work for me? You saw your mother struggle with trying to be that, whatever that was, the subservient Muslim wife. Because there's a structure there. They got a certain way about them.
Yeah, I think that he probably there was a difference between the wife that he had before my mom, because she was full-on Muslim. She was a Muslim when he met her, whereas trying to convert someone to Islam is a different thing. And I think, yes, my mom did go about as being a Muslim woman, and she covered herself and everything. She didn't wear the head scarf and all of that. Okay. But I don't think it was so much tension about so much the religion. I think the tension came from him, just kind of doing his thing, you know what I mean? And her probably getting tired of it at a certain point and just moving on.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
And they ultimately did move on after 9 years of marriage in 1986, and y'all moved down the street a few blocks. I think it was on Longwood Avenue. How was it? How did you feel at that time being so close to your father in proximity, but yet still far apart?
So my father moved out of state. He didn't,
right away? Or?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly when, but my father ended up getting remarried and moved out of state at a certain point. So it wasn't like we ever lived up the street from one another. Once I moved out of the home with my father, and we stayed in the same neighborhood, moved out of a mansion into a smaller mansion, but it wasn't like he was right down the street.
Okay.
So I always remember my father. In fact, that's the first time anyone ever asked me that. But I always remember him just being out of state. It was never like, oh, we're going back up the street. We never went back to that house. We all moved out together. Yeah.
Never went back.
Yeah, never went back to that house.
And I looked up that neighborhood. I mean, I think it's only like 55 houses.
Yes.
Like, you already got LA and what comes with that, but you got an exclusive neighborhood within LA.
Yeah, it was nice, and it still is. I went back recently. LL Cool J lived there for a while, and I went to their home, and I was like, oh man, that's my old house, and another family had bought it, and it was back on the market recently.
I seen that.
Yeah, it was back on the market, and so it was interesting because there's so many memories there, and it was a gated community, which there's not many of in that area. But honey, you wouldn't have thought it was gated because people were always coming through, because my dad be like, let them in, let them in.
He'd say you wouldn't turn down nobody at the front gate.
Right.
Did you resent the split when your parents split at the time?
No, I didn't. I think Hannah, my sister, it was harder for her because she was
she's a
daddy's
daddy
girl.
girl, yeah.
So she was really upset, and she went through some things. But for me, I was fine with it. Yeah, I didn't know what was coming.
Yeah, but you seem to be actually a little bit excited because you were like, man, it's a smaller house, it's more homey. This is what I want as a young girl.
Absolutely.
I don't want the big grand.
Right, and I didn't know at the time. I can when I wrote the book, in my 20s, I can go back and think back and try to formulate the thoughts and the feelings that I was having. But at the time when I was young, I wasn't like, yay, I get to get my own house. But I think that I felt more settled inside, absolutely.
That makes sense.
For a little while, and then things started kind of going downhill.
We're going to get to that in just a second. But this is about 86, and Ali hadn't fought in about 5 years at this point. When did you first start hearing or seeing any symptoms from him from the Parkinson's?
I remember just as long as I can remember, you know, my father slurring his speech slightly.
Really?
Yeah, and I always kind of knew him that way. And I think it got worse as time went on. And maybe by the time I would say 11, 12, I started noticing tremors in his hands. And then it was like, oh, he has Parkinson's syndrome, they would say. And then it turned into he has Parkinson's disease. So we didn't really know. But over time, it started getting worse and worse and worse.
During that time period, were there any discussions on coming back? Because you know how it is, even if you're dealing with something like that, that fighter's in you, money's on the table.
My dad used to always joke about coming back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, serious conversations I wouldn't have been involved in because I was too young. But there was never a time when I thought he was seriously going to come back once he retired. I was too young, even when he fought Larry Holmes and went through all that and stayed in the ring longer than he should. But he used to always say, I'm gonna make a comeback. I'm gonna make a comeback. And he was saying that when he was in the 60s.
Yeah, we gonna be doing the same thing.
Yes.
And I don't know for sure, but I've read where Ali, you know, he would spar a lot, no headgear, and he let guys beat on him. And in his mind, back then, it's like, it's making me tougher. You know, they 15 rounds, they rumbling. They not pity-patting around.
Yeah.
That had to have led to a lot of that stuff, just the wrong mindset about training. Now, you know, I mean, the word concussion, even when I was coming up, wasn't talked about. You just call it getting buzzed. So I can only imagine the punches and stuff he might have took, just thinking that, man, I'm getting tough and I'm getting ready for this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And being a heavyweight, you know,
Ooh,
you're
yeah.
getting hit a lot harder, right? It's a lot more of a beating. But it's all relative. I think all of us are getting hit in the head.
Yeah.
Whether it's with headgear or not, you're getting damage done. Whether you don't realize you've had concussions or not, you know, it's happening. And that's a sport that we're in, that's a sport that we chose. But there are definitely safer ways to train. You know, we know, I mean, when I was training, you know, training with Roger Mayweather, Floyd Mayweather, Buddy McGirt, you know, some of the other trainers that you wouldn't probably know, but they were all more old school. You know what I mean? I remember coming to the gym and it was like, no, you can't have any water. And I'm like,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Why? Like, and you know, as a woman, women are different. We're gonna ask questions. And I'm real different. I'm gonna do what I want to know. I'm gonna get some water. I'm like, you gotta stay hydrated. You know, why not be able to stay hydrated? So it was just a lot of things that just people think are old school and tough and all of that can be detrimental. And again, sparring without headgear. Sometimes I've seen some of these girls in the ring like taking body shots. Well, I saw one, and I remember I hit her and I on DM and I was like, you shouldn't do that. I was like, do you want to have children? And she was like, I said, you shouldn't have your trainer, a male trainer, just hitting you in the body. And she's like, oh, I never thought about that.
Wow.
She had no cup on. You know, I'm like, you need to, I could see, at least put your cup on, you know? So there's just things people don't think about, you know, that to preserve yourself, you're not gonna be able to do this forever, you're not gonna be young forever, and you wanna take as least of a beating as possible, right?
I just think for us, and I agree with everything you're saying, for us as just say fighters, as really athletes, but most don't think that there's gonna be a day where we can't do it or won't want to do it. It's like, I'm in it, I'm making money, I'm making moves, this is who I've become. We can't see a life after.
That's too bad.
It's sad.
Yeah, it's like, it's not realistic, and it's just not smart, you know? I like to be smart, and I like to be realistic, I like to be efficient. And no matter what it is that I'm doing, and nobody can do it forever, you know, and you always have to think ahead and you always have to plan for tomorrow. So that's why it's important to have a team around you and somebody who can remind you, because it's a balance. You should focus on being a fighter. When I was fighting, I wasn't doing movies, I wasn't doing any of that. You can imagine how many offers I had along the way.
Yeah.
That I turned down because I was like, no, I'm focused on fighting, because I was afraid that I would get soft. I was afraid that I would get, you know, distracted. All I want to do is fight. Now I'm like, damn, I could have took a couple of those opportunities because they're not there anymore. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Not
right.
those,
That's
not
right.
those movies and things.
And
I
those
was
live
like,
forever.
Yeah. But I mean, but then it's just a thought. But I don't, because I'm like, what might have happened? What might have happened? What would have been different? You know? But yeah, you have to think about the future, obviously.
Are you aware of Sinisa Estrada?
I am. I love.
She just retired.
I know. And I was gonna hit her when I got
Yeah.
a chance and talk to her and find out why. Yeah, I've been in contact with her. She knows I'm a fan. Like, she was one of my faves. Loved her style. Very unorthodox. And I see a lot of things. Obviously, we always see things that you could fix. Like, girl, do this, do that. but man, it was working for her. You know
Man,
what I
it was
mean?
effective.
And she had a little evil streak in her, a mean streak, I
the
should
dog
say.
in her, yeah.
I loved it. I loved it.
But I bring her up because, we're talking about life after, and this is what I'm talking about for, just say, boxing. I want to see more of this stuff, and I believe this is gonna become fashionable, is to leave on your own terms. Everybody can't leave on top, but leave on your own terms, where you say, I still got a lot left in the tank. There are some other things that I want to explore, and I'm going to build a life outside of boxing. So I salute her. But it is a gut punch. And when the handful of people that have walked away or stopped, and I wasn't prepared for it, I'm like, that's how people felt when I must have walked away. Cause kind of like, hold on, like I
Why?
wasn't
Yeah.
ready for that. But I love to see stuff like that, to the point that we're talking about. So I'm gonna get back to your story. So you about 12 years old now, and your mother meets a man that you call Walter in the book, and you are pulled away from LA against your will, and you in Malibu now. Most people would love to be in Malibu, but you wasn't happy about that.
No. Well, because my friends were in LA. It's all I knew.
Okay.
So you're telling a kid we're going down the coast. And it wasn't that far, but to me it seemed like forever away. Like an hour away, down PCH. I was like, what kind of people are in Malibu? Surfer? It was just, I was young and I had to go to a whole different school. Not only that, I didn't like my mom's husband. We didn't get along. He didn't like me either. We had got into it early on. And I remember sitting down and him saying, look, I'm the man of the house now. And he had like this wood paddle in his hand that you would like beat somebody with. And I was like, you're not about to hit me with that.
You about to hit me with that? Yeah.
And I remember going back and forth with him and him just being like, damn, because this little girl won't back down. And I was like, you're not about to do nothing, and my mom was crying, my sister was crying. And I had to grow up in that day because I was like, my mom is sitting here crying and this man is threatening like he's gonna hit. I could tell he wasn't gonna do anything.
Right.
I didn't think he was anyway, but if he was, it was just gonna be on.
Right.
But I was like, man, my mom's crying, my sister's crying. I felt like in that moment, I gotta step up. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the man, obviously, but I have to be the protector of the family. Yeah, and it also was very disappointing for me to see her let him talk to us that way. And then we moved, to a whole nother place, and then it just kind of really went downhill.
You talk about that place and how it was like partitioned off. You had Walter and your mother over here, and you and your sister over here, and you said you had a revelation in that moment, like, this is why he wanted to move there, because he was really the genesis of the move.
In LA where we lived, that was our old neighborhood. He was never going to be able to fill my father's shoes, and I'm sure there's an insecurity there. You're marrying Muhammad Ali's ex-wife. And he had a very big ego, male chauvinist. I think he was like a pianist or something and trying to be something. He had a chip on his shoulder. So he wanted to move away to Malibu where nobody knew them. It was different. And they happened to purchase a house that was a big, big house, and it was shaped like an L. And the shorter part of the L was a guest house. So it had a kitchen and rooms and everything. So me and my sister's room was there. And at first it was like, okay, well, I don't want to be near you either. We're good. But then they started locking the door. He started locking the door to get into the house. So next thing I know, I can't even go into the house. I have a separate entrance. I have a separate kitchen. I'm calling my mom on the phone. Whenever I can't just go to my mom. I had to call her on the phone. So we go to the grocery store, 2 separate shopping carts. And my mom,
Really?
Absolutely, my mom was going through it with him because he was mentally abusing her. And, I lost a lot of respect for my mom because I needed my mom, obviously. That was just crazy to be locked on one side of the house and have to call your mom. Nobody's waking me up to go to school. Nobody's asking me, did I do homework? Nobody's preparing meals for me. Nobody knows anything about what's going on in my life. And my dad lives in a different state. And me being the person that I was, already ready to go hang out with the wrong crowds. I had anger inside now that was brewing. And I was always a tall girl, always dressed well, always, I came from money, right? So there was always girls who were jealous, you think you're all that. And I was quick to say, I am. And what? What you gonna do?
Right.
So I would back down. I wouldn't start anything, but I definitely had an air about myself, this confidence that comes off as arrogance. And I was ready to fight. So I did. I got into fights growing up. I got kicked out of schools. I probably went to like 6 different schools during this certain stage of my life. Ended up graduating from continuation, and that's how the fighter in me kind of came about just from that situation.
How much of that was, and I know it's a hypothetical, but I don't know if you've thought about this, but mom going through what she's going through, if dad is more present day to day picking you up, do you think you would have been as angry?
Probably not. I can't ever imagine that he would have been more present because, like I said, my dad lived in a different state. He is like freeing hostages from Saddam Hussein. You know, so he's doing so many big, wonderful things. Somebody has to suffer. That's just how it is. Like, it's not, like I said, this isn't something that you complain about. This is something that, you know, somebody has to suffer. Just like people who go fight for our country. You know, their family has to suffer, but they do it for the country. It's the same thing. My father was doing big things on a big level, so I never thought of, I wish daddy was here. The person that I wanted, whose attention I wanted, who I was close to, was my mother. So, you know, I basically felt abandoned by my mother. So, and I was angry that she was letting this person do that to her and do it to us, right? So it just turned into, you know, trouble for myself.
So you're saying how, you know, your sister, same household, different experience.
Yeah, Hannah had a different experience growing up because she just had a different personality, a different attitude. Hannah was bubbly, happy-go-lucky, didn't want any trouble. So for me, like I said, something in me was already kind of like a rebel, you know, and like, try me. I just had this attitude.
And you've always been like
I've
that.
always been that way. And it first came out, you know, when I was probably 8 years old and I told my dad I didn't want to be Muslim.
You told him that?
Oh yeah, I was like, I don't want to be Muslim, because I remember he used to wake us up at 5 in the morning to pray, and I'm like, why do I have to wake up at 5 in the morning to pray? Like, why does God care what time you pray? And then, and why do I have to face this direction? And why do the women have to be behind the men? And it's like all these different things. I'm like, this doesn't make sense to me. And he was like, you're a kid. And then at a certain point, I was like, I don't want to be Muslim. And I'm the only one in the family that's ever told him that. And he's just like, you don't know, you're not old enough to know what you want. And I said, I know what's in my heart. He was like, oh, Lord, this one's going to give me a run for
Lord
my
help
money.
me.
Yeah, this one's going to give me, because what could he say? And it's always been that way. So that started our relationship off. So everything I ever did to get in trouble was like, that's because you're not Muslim.
He would say that?
Oh, yeah, I was like, that's why. It's just, she's the one. This is the problem, see? Ever since then, it's
Should've
going
picked
down.
that up.
Yep.
But I feel like just reading the book that he eventually understood that that's my baby. She gon', you know, he would try to press you on things, and then when you would press back, I would read how he would give a little bit like, all right, Laila, do what you want to do.
Me and him are so alike when it comes to character, you know, and that thing, right? And he recognized that in me. So when he told me, you know, when I told him I didn't want to be Muslim, when I told him I wanted to start boxing, he didn't want me to, I did it anyway. When he sees what kind of woman that I've grown into, when he sees what kind of man that I married and chose, when he sees how I was raising my children, when he sees how I'm, you know, carrying myself publicly, in his shadow, you know, he's very proud.
That's beautiful.
So, you know, and even as a fighter in the ring, knowing that he had nothing to do with my career. You know, most people would assume that it was like, this is my daughter, give her the best of everything. Yep. Like you would do if it was your daughter. Yeah. No, not, and it wasn't a bad thing. It's because it was my choice and he didn't want me to do it. Right. And I went off and did it on my own. Right. So he absolutely, and just like he told my mom, it's not about religion, it's about having God in your life. And the people that are around me that happen to be Muslim, you know, and friends, they're just like, you're not Muslim, but a lot of the principles are very similar in terms of the way that I live my lifestyle and the way that I carry myself, you know, when it comes to just, you know, character and the core of who you are.
Man, I know your goal was not for the book to be sad, and it wasn't, but there was a weightiness with the book, especially as I'm reading the first 5, 6, 7 chapters. Like, I would put the book down and be like, man. It was some new revelation, but it was also like, I could only imagine, like I was taken back to that period, and I looked up the house that y'all grew up in, and I was like, man, I can only imagine. I saw the inside. It looked like the White House in terms of just the structure. Mm-hmm. So there was a weightiness there, and I'm like, man, Laila had to go through a lot. Like a lot. Mm-hmm. Throughout the years, how have you dealt and processed with that stuff? Just father wound, dad not being there, structure not, and again, it's not all bad, but this was part of the reality.
Yeah, of course. You know, I think a lot of it was just writing the book. At that young age, I wrote the book. I got it all out because I wanted to tell the story myself. I'm just so proud of myself to just have the wherewithal to think that through. Because, you know, I ended up going to juvenile hall, getting in trouble. Like, nobody's gonna pull this out on me. Like, I'm gonna let you know right now what happened. This is how it went. And along the way, I'm also gonna inspire a lot of people who don't understand that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You never have to let your past define you. I also felt the need, outside of just the strategy of it, to let people know why I wanted to box, how I was able to box. Because when I started boxing, it was, oh, you're too pretty. It's a publicity stunt. You know, people didn't understand.
Women don't fight.
Why would you want to do this?
Right.
You could do so many other things. Why? And I'm like, that's the crazy thing about me that is the amazing thing about me. I love this. I love to fight. You know, it's my first love. It will always be. And I was a fighter before I started boxing. And you have to have something, as you know, to draw on in that ring. You know, because they're going to get in there with someone who's going to want it just as bad as you, might be stronger than you, might be just as talented as you, you know, and you got to pull from somewhere, somewhere deep. And, you know, that's how I was able to develop those places to be able to go through everything that I had been through.
Powerful, powerful testimony. How were you getting back to LA, being way in Malibu? Please do tell.
So first I was taking the bus, you know, because I didn't have a problem getting on public transportation. You know, I used to take the bus everywhere because I was that kid, I didn't want to wait for my mom. It was like, oh, I'll take you later. I'm like, I'm good. I just hop on the bus. I had that schedule, no problem. Most people would be like, Muhammad Ali's out on the bus. Like, my sister wasn't riding the bus. Hannah wasn't on the bus.
She wasn't doing it.
No, Hannah never took the bus. So me and Hannah had a whole different set of friends, whole different social lives, you know, because Hannah was like, well, you're ghetto. You're ghetto.
You got you ghetto?
Hannah's like, you're ghetto, because I was always getting in trouble, getting kicked out of school. I remember one time I got kicked out of one school and I came to the school she was at, and my reputation preceded me. And they were like, oh God, Hannah's sister, she's like, my sister Layla, don't mess with my sister Layla. And the first day of school was like, there was a fight after school, you know, and the whole school was coming to watch. It was crazy, but yeah, but I used to steal my mom's car. At a certain point, I started stealing my mom's car. Literally, like, how are you just 11 years old, 12 years old, driving down PCH? Yeah,
You were 11
highway.
and 12 still in the car?
Yeah, still in the car, yep.
That's like, what, an hour drive or something?
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yep, I would just wait till she leave. I backed that car out. And it was so crazy, because I think of it now as a kid. I'd be like, she's gonna be gone for 3 hours. It takes an hour to get where I'm going. I'm gonna go just to be with my friends for an hour and drive back home. Like, who does that? And then I progressed to where it would be like, I wore my mom out and was like, I have a friend who has a license, and can we borrow the car for the weekend? One of her cars.
Yeah.
And she was like, no, Layla, no, Layla, no. And I just wore her down. And finally she said, okay.
Yeah.
So after school, I just waited. And she didn't ask to meet the friend, because she wasn't in her right mind. She was busy dealing with him.
Right.
She didn't ask to meet the friend, none of that. And I was like, I just wait till she leave. Like, she came, we left.
Yeah,
and I go and we spent the night with my friend. We telling her mom. Man. Yeah, it was bad. And I'm younger than all my friends, but I'm the one driving.
But you said you needed that. You needed just that interaction with your friends, because Malibu wasn't it for you.
No, I felt alone. I mean, obviously you're locked on one side of the house. You know, I was angry. It was far, just as a kid, you know, I wasn't really feeling the school that I was going to. You know, I just wanted to get back to the city.
The kids that you were around, friends or others, did they get word of Ali's condition at that time? And did you hear it? Were they ever trying to say some smart stuff, tease or whatever?
Yeah. I remember growing up and hearing a couple of people, your dad has brain damage. Really? Those were a couple of fights, you know. Yeah.
So
but you know how kids are. They're gonna say, but it wasn't something that happened all the time. I just remember a couple times growing up, maybe two, literally, where someone said something. But I think that, you know, they hear their parents talking or they see something on the news, and you know how kids can be. They're just gonna be evil. But yeah, I've gotten a couple fights over that.
Because Ali was open about it. You said he wasn't trying to hide his condition.
Well, he didn't really know in the very beginning that it was actually Parkinson's disease, because they were still learning a lot about it. And it was like, oh, it's Parkinson's syndrome. And then, of course, as a boxer, people think, oh, you have brain damage. You know, and he probably did have some effects, because we know fighters that don't have Parkinson's, but definitely might be slurring their speech, having some cognitive, neurological issues. It can happen. My memory's not that great from boxing, just in general, and I didn't get beat up. But the beating happened during sparring. Sparring all those rounds with men, different heavyweights and just even some of the smaller guys. It doesn't matter. Just being hit all the time, 6 days out the week, you know what I'm saying? It's going to add up. So, it kind of, like I said, it started progressing. It was happening in the background, and then we see where it went.
We see this a lot and hear it a lot when you go to the Hall of Fame. It's a great event. It's a great time. You're seeing former greats, but it's also, it can be a heavy thing too, because I'm seeing these guys and then they start speaking, and I've talked to certain guys. I'm not gonna say no names, and they'll ask me, like, I'm on the podium. You fought? I'm like, yeah, man. That's why. We'll go
Yeah,
back and forth, and
yeah.
then 5 minutes later, you fought?
Same question.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, and that's when retirement seems like a good idea.
Absolutely.
I'm like, I think I did the right thing.
Absolutely. And you see it more, you can look at the styles of certain fighters,
True.
right? You talk to Roy Jones, he's not necessarily like that. He might have some effects, but he's not like that.
Right.
But it's the ones that like think they were tough and gonna stand there. I could take it. It's not about taking it, but everyone can't just move their head and use their eyes. They got to use what they had. And then you have certain ones that just don't want to get hit at all. It's like, come on,
But
man, you got to do
gauge a
something. You
little
got to
bit.
mix it up a little bit.
Give me something to work
Especially if
with.
you got good eyes, you
Right.
can take more chances.
Yeah.
But so it really just depends.
Yeah, you gotta know who you are, and that's why you gotta, as a fighter, the media, who 99.9% of them have never taken a punch, don't know what that feels like, or a street fight, school fight. You need to do this, or this is what sells. Well, look, if that's what sells, I guess I'm not gonna sell then,
Right.
because I'm gonna do what I was taught to do. Because when this ends, I gotta be able to give something back to my family. I can't leave it all in here.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful balance, and I think you had it. When you can move, you can use your eyes, you can use your feet, use your distance, but mix it up and wait and get in and get out. That's really the sweet science, right? That everyone wish they could do. But it's like, being able to give enough. Like, I just remember when I was boxing, that was like the thing my team always wanted me, box, Laila, box, because I like to fight.
Right.
I like to fight
It's
on the
in you,
inside. Yeah, I like to get on the ropes and all that.
Right.
And I didn't have great eyes. They were cool, it was good. It was my speed and my power and my confidence and my movement, but eyes wasn't really my thing. But I would say that when you have all of that and it comes together and you got power too, and I think, like I said, that's what I loved about the way that you fought. That you struck a nice balance. Fans are always gonna want to see more.
Right.
They're always gonna want to see blood.
Right.
And just like, yeah, that's just not smart.
My coach put it to me this way. He said, man, Jimmy was his former trainer, and Charlie Smith, two old school guys. He said they grew up fighting in the backwoods in different places, and they call it gunslinging. And you needed to know how to defend yourself and know how to fight so you could keep making money and not get hurt, because the ref ain't gonna save you. These are backwood fights. He said that's the mentality that they came from, and their whole objective was to get the fighter home safe to their family. And obviously there's an entertainment component to it, but you gotta know how to take care of yourself. If you get hurt, do you know how to survive? All these different things matter. So I think the entertainment thing is a beautiful thing, but to your point, fighters better learn how to work your craft and get out the way as much as you can, because there is a life after boxing, and we just got to accept that.
Absolutely.
At this 12, 13, 14 years, did you understand who your father was and all he had accomplished? Like you knew who he was?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
By that point, yeah, I've never been like people are who are fans of my father, where I know his whole timeline and every single thing. Like, like you could say, well, when did he retire? I'd be like, because I didn't study him like that. He's dad, just like you said, your kids. I know like who my dad is, what he stood for, what he went through. But when it comes to like the chronological fights and all that, that's not, I don't even know I can't remember my own like that. But, I definitely knew who he was. And the main thing, what he stood for, because growing up, I mentioned going out in public with him and him having that briefcase and having all the fans, but he also would take the time to sit us down for hours and have conversations with us about the world and about people, and sometimes a little into politics. And my dad didn't watch sports. That wasn't what was on in the background. No, he watched the news and knew what was going on in the world. He had different political, leaders from other countries calling him. Remember I said he ended up going and freeing hostages from Saddam Hussein when the United States couldn't do it. And he would say to us, you know, I stop and I take time with people and look them in their eye because they're so excited to see me and it makes them feel special. So he was very intentional about taking time with people and being the people's champ. And that was important to me to know, like, no, this is why I do this. And it sticks with me now. You know, like, I'm very humble. I'm confident, but I'm very humble.
Right.
Like, if anyone was ever to meet me, I never act like I'm above anybody else because I don't feel that I am.
Right.
And I take time for people. And, you know, people are kind of surprised a lot of times, like, how you doing? You know,
Right.
shake hands and
Yeah,
all that
they
kind of
expect
thing.
something
Yeah,
else.
yeah, all that. Because that's how my father was. So it's funny to me when I see certain people and they think they're bigger than life. And I'm like, really? But they just think that's how you're supposed to act. They don't know. They don't know any better.
I've always loved that about Ali. And I've tried to take from that too. You know, even times, because you know, you don't always feel like being a public figure. Sometimes you want to come in this grocery store,
All the time,
get my
yes.
dinner and
Yes.
leave. I don't want to take a picture.
Yes.
But I've learned, and Ali mastered it, was that may be that person's first interaction and only interaction
Absolutely.
with you. What's the takeaway gonna be?
And I can tell you how to get around the grocery store though, when you need to. I
Okay.
have all the tricks. Yeah,
Okay.
I got all the tricks. But when you've been made, and that's when, like, okay, I've been made.
Yeah.
I will try to get around and you don't see me. But if you see me, now I'm gonna have to act a certain way. But yeah, it's just life. Not everybody wants, sometimes you just need to come get this cough medicine for your baby.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, but they want to take a photo, let me call someone, do all that. So, but yeah, I'll teach you the ways to get around.
I appreciate it. I'm gonna add to what I already got. I just got this is a side note. We're gonna get back on track. I just had a fender bender, little accident a couple weeks ago. So I'm already aware that people gonna start looking. So my car went off to the side. The person's car was behind me, and it was my fault. And I'm kind of like ducked down in my car because I'm like, okay, cops are coming up, and they were cool, but all of a sudden I see this guy come out the bank, and I could tell how he's moving. And you know when a person get ready to ask you for a picture or something like that. So I'm like, man, here this dude come.
Yeah, damn.
He's like, hey man, can I get a picture? And I was on the phone with my insurance. I was like, I don't want to take a picture right now. I just got in an accident.
Right.
But it's stuff like that you got to deal with. I'm mindful of my attitude, like, am I coming off the wrong way? But at the same time, you do got to protect
But
yourself.
that's
You do got to
okay.
have
Yeah,
boundaries.
absolutely, absolutely.
Because especially these days,
Absolutely.
people.
And that's understandable. If he was to go tell anyone, man, I saw Andre Ward, he had just had an accident, and I went to ask for a picture, he said no. They'd be like, man, what you asking for? Right, exactly.
So that's that. But let me get back on track. At this age, you know, that 14, 15, like, what was your view on boxing? I know you didn't watch it, but like, did you care for it, or did you feel like, man, that's maybe the reason my dad ain't here? Like, how was your view on the sport?
I had no view on boxing. Like, I wasn't into boxing at all.
Did your father watch boxing? I know he didn't watch other sports.
I cannot remember him watching. I'm sure he did, but I know for a fact that my dad was not a fan of boxing,
That is so interesting.
where he just watched all the fights. He's like me. I watch certain fighters. I'm not someone that's just like, oh, there's some boxing on, I'm just gonna turn it on. I might turn it on and see what it is, be like, ah. And then there's certain fighters I want to watch. That's just how, and he was the same way. But I don't remember seeing him actually watching a fight. So I'm sure he did. But again, remember, I was only living with him through, so I don't want to say he didn't. But it's not like I grew up watching fights with my dad. I'm just trying to paint that it wasn't that picture.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I saw women boxing on television for the first time that I actually was like, oh my God.
What is this?
And I turned on the TV to watch a Mike Tyson fight. I was like, you know, Mike Tyson, because you don't even have to be a big fan of boxing to watch someone like a Mike Tyson fight. That's a household name.
Yep.
It's an event, right? So Mike's gonna knock somebody out. And then these women come into the ring on the undercard, and I was just like, oh my God.
Christy Martin. You going through life, you trying to figure things out, and you had already been in juvenile court for a theft. And you meet a guy, he talking a big game.
You really know the
I
story.
did my
I love
research.
it.
Yeah, I did my research. And he wants to take Laila on a shopping spree at the mall. And you said that, you know, I knew it was a bit strange, that, you know, there was no limits to what I could buy, but whatever, I just want what I want. And this man actually has stolen a credit card. Y'all get caught up, and you find yourself back before Judge Roosevelt F. Was it Dorn?
Mm-hmm.
Roosevelt F. Dorn. And he basically told you, don't come back to this courtroom. If you come back to this courtroom, it's gonna be a problem. And I think you had 1 day left on your probation.
When I tell
They
you,
like, how you get caught
when
up
I
a
tell you
day
stupid,
before?
When I tell you stupid, so I told you I was wanting to hang with the wrong crowd, fighting at school, ditching school, bad grades.
The whole
I
nine.
was just doing what I wanted to do. Like I had no parental supervision, literally.
And that's dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
At that age.
Nobody's waking me up. Like I said, nobody's telling me to go to school, nothing. I was totally going down the wrong path. So I was already on probation, getting ready to get off. And Judge Dorn was known in Inglewood. Like he was a judge. It's like he locks people up, right? So he probably was already thinking, what is this girl doing here? Now, mind you, when I got arrested, I went under the name Anderson, okay? So I knew don't use my last name, but he knew who I was.
He did?
Yeah, he knew.
How
he
could
was just
you
like,
tell?
but I don't know.
He didn't tell you
He
though,
knew.
like I know who you are.
No, he knew though. And, you know, he was like, what is, like, first of all, what is she here in the first place? Well, what is going on? So when I came back and got arrested for being with someone who had a stolen credit card and because the first time I got in trouble was for shoplifting. I was with some girls, she was stealing. I was like, I had money in my pocket. Okay,
Right.
I'm gonna steal too.
Right.
Stupid, got caught. And the crazy thing about it is my attitude is what got me on probation. Because when we got caught, my two friends, including the one who was just always stealing, always got us doing it.
Right.
She didn't make me do it, but she, you know, she gave me the idea to do it. She's sitting there crying, and I'm telling them, what are you guys crying for? We knew what we were doing. I'm acting all tough. I'm not afraid. So the officers are looking at me like, oh, okay, this one right here, we're gonna show her. So they went home and got picked up. I got booked, you know, fingerprint, photo at the Beverly Hills jail, and then got put on probation because of my attitude, because they felt like I didn't feel any remorse. But really, it wasn't that. It was just I wasn't gonna show my fear. I was like, we knew what we were doing. We're gonna cry for now. But in that situation, come on, girl, show some tears. You would have been able to go home.
You might have went home, yeah.
So, but that's what I needed though, because I had so many other things going on in the background, stealing my mom's car, being disrespectful. I was totally disrespectful at this point to my mom. I was like, you're not gonna tell me what to do. Like I was bad.
I read it in the book. I was like, oh, Laila.
Yeah, I was pretty bad. She tried to send me to a boarding school.
Boarding school.
I was like, if you leave me here, I'm gonna be right back home.
Right.
And that she wouldn't get her money back, so she brought me home. She was like, what am I gonna do with her? Like
That was strategic.
My poor mother.
Yeah.
So I didn't come home that day. He was like, take her. And I just looked back at my mom and started crying. That's when I became a real kid. Cause I was like already telling my friend, yeah, girl, I'm going to court. I'll see you tonight at the party. Yeah, woo.
Not so.
They put my hands behind my back. I had to put on those county clothes. My mom was crying. And she tells me now, of course she felt bad, but then she was like, this is probably what she needs.
Right.
So I ended up going, and he set my court date for 2 weeks. And I was like, 2 weeks? Where am I going? Where are they taking me? It was scary. And, you know, you get just locked up. 2 weeks comes, he didn't see me. I was just sitting in the court, in the back of the little jail room, and the whole day went by, and they sent me back. I was like, they'll see you in another 2 weeks. I'm like, ooh. And he did that to me 3 more times. So he was making me do time without actually booking me.
You think that was intentional?
That's what I think. Because I'm like, why else? How you just going to have me come here 3 times?
Right.
And finally, when I came back, okay, I'm going to go home today. He wasn't there. They were like, Judge, there's another judge. You can wait for Judge Dorn, or you can let this guy. And I knew I was either going to go to a boot camp, which is more serious than juvenile hall. Yeah. So I was like, I think Judge Dorn had a plan for me. I'm just going to wait. So then I, on my own, chose to go back. Right. And when I came back, he sent me to a group home. And because he was like, you need therapy. You know, you need, something's going on with you and your family. So I had to go to a program and stayed there for a year. And I'm sorry, it was actually 6 months. They said it would be a year. And I was like, a year? I can't be here a year. Because at that point, I had got my nail license. I had my car. I wanted to get back home.
Right.
I was like, what do I need to do to get out of here? And they were like, well, no one's ever left here but is it possible? They're like, yeah, so what? So I just need you to tell me what I need to do, and I'm gonna do it. So, and then I was out of there in 6 months.
But part of the requirements was participation.
Participation in group.
In group.
Every day.
You know.
And earning home passes, which took a lot. School, cleaning, staying on top of things, doing your group sessions. And when you go home, what are you going to work on with your mom this weekend? You know, come back. And then I eventually, graduated the program. And they were asking me to come back and work there by the time I had graduated. So
that was 6 months. During that time, did you have any communication with Ali? Did he know?
Yeah, he knew. He knew when I was locked up, and he knew all of this.
I can only
Everyone
imagine
was just like, what's going on with Laila? Because you have to remember, I'm the baby. I'm the ghetto one.
Yeah.
I'm the bad one. I'm the one that didn't want to be Muslim. What is going on? I can only imagine the conversations that were had, especially those ones that weren't that close to me. But I didn't see anyone or talk to anyone. I was going through this on my own.
Right.
And, now look at me now. So, I'm sure it's kind of like, damn, what happened?
Come on.
So, yeah.
And you talked about how, hearing those other stories from those girls, you were like, you started to get the revelation of how good you had it and how bad they had it. And when you finally did get released, you said the raging storm inside me had subsided, perhaps even passed. You said, by locking me up, he set me free.
Yep. I needed that because I was really just on the loose, in terms of just going down the wrong path and not respecting myself, to be around certain types of people, not to engage in certain things. I mean, why was I shoplifting in the first place? That doesn't make any sense. I can never imagine either of my children now doing any of the things that I did. And I can understand why, but thank God for all of the strong women in my life. Like, cause along the way, there was times when I was staying with a friend. Can I just come to your house? Like, I started going to school in LA because I got tired of Malibu, and I was like, I'll take the bus every day. And I'd like talk my mom into that. So that's how I started going to school in LA. And then I was like, I don't want to come home. So I'd spend the night at a friend. Can we just give your mom some money and I could just stay here? I think about that because I forget those things. I'm like, I was living with them for a while, and I can't remember how long, but my friend that had a single mom, they weren't doing well, so I'm giving her a few $100s a week. She probably was like, sure.
Right.
It helped her out, but there are so many things like that. But being able to have the opportunity to be around families that were real families and had that togetherness in their home showed me what it was supposed to look like and made me want it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you yearned for that.
Yes, I did.
So you get out and you hit the ground running. You start going to school. I mean, the entrepreneurial energy was on full display. You ended up starting Laila's Nail Studio, so you did what you had been envisioning, and everything is going good with the nail studio. Is successful. You building clientele, and then one night, and you talked about this earlier, at a friend's house, you're watching Mike Tyson, Frank Bruno in 1989, and something happened while you were watching that fight.
Those women before the fight came into the ring, Christy Martin and Deidre Gogarty. I didn't know either of their names at the time, but I just remember the whole world stopping. Because remember, I'm a fighter. I've been fighting.
Right, but I've been fighting.
Yeah, I've been fighting.
Just not sanctioned.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I'm getting in trouble for it.
Right.
I was like, women fight? And I'm like, I'm Muhammad Ali's daughter. I'm a fighter. I didn't know women fought. I could fight and not get in trouble? Like, it just looked so enticing to me. And I was just like, damn, I bet I could be good at it. But at the same time, I went home that night, dreaming about it. And I remember the first person to say something was my friend's father. Girl, those women will take your head off. You're a pretty girl. And you're a pretty girl. You can't fight. You can't fight. And me and my friend looked at each other like, he don't know. She was like, yeah, Laila, do it. So I went home, and of course I talked myself out of it because I was like, I don't know the first thing about being a boxer. I've never been an athlete, never participated in sports.
Oh, really?
Yep, never participated in any sport because I was too busy being bad, ditching school. Sports is organized. Did you play sports growing up?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Oh, yeah.
your parents
and you gotta have GPA too.
Yeah, and your parents have to drop you off and take you to practice and go to the game. I know because I do it now. I'm like, oh my God, no wonder. So yeah, I didn't play sports. I didn't even do PE because I wasn't there. I was ditching.
You wasn't dressing out?
No. So to think about actually doing it though, and then what will my father think? I don't think he's gonna like this, and I don't want to be a public person. That was the biggest feeling. I don't want to be a public person. I told you, I'm like, so that was the turmoil inside of myself. So a whole year went by until I actually was like, I'm gonna try this. And I remember a client of mine was like, oh, I go to a boxing gym, and I didn't know at the time. She's talking about boxing aerobics, right? But I was like, oh, okay. She's like, it's called LA Boxing. She's like, no, there's like boxers there. I was like, okay. So I went down there and I met a guy named Kevin Morgan who had been in the game for a long time. He's just one of those guys that trains, the fighters that don't really have a name, usually the opponents. And I was like, yeah, I want to box just to lose weight. I didn't say that I was actually thinking about boxing. And because I wanted to make sure that this is what I really wanted to do, that I could, be committed to it. and wasn't gonna embarrass myself, wasn't gonna embarrass my father. So I started training every night. I used to come in the gym 8 o'clock after school and work and train, and Kevin, and give him a ride home,
Right.
and give him a little money. And he was like, damn, you can punch. Yeah, because I remember the first time, we got in there, you know what I'm saying? He was like,
He felt it.
he saw stars, like, damn, like, so, and people get excited once you see somebody athletic that can punch.
For sure.
And then it finally got around because I started sparring. Okay, maybe she's serious. Maybe she's really trying to, box.
Did Coach know you?
Huh?
He knew who you were?
He knew. Yeah, at this point he knew. But it was kind of like I was naive and thinking, don't tell anybody. But it got around.
Yeah.
And then I sparred with a guy and dropped him the first time, and I still see him sometimes. That's
Really?
funny. He always act like he don't remember. He doesn't acknowledge. He doesn't acknowledge. It's funny because it's a guy, I'm not gonna say any names, but it's a guy who's like a reporter in boxing.
Yeah.
But he was trying to work out a little bit. But he's a smaller guy than me. So, and he wasn't a professional, and I can punch. So I dropped him. I dropped a right hand, and that green strength, like I threw it everything I had, and he was on the canvas. And I was
He
like,
don't remember that.
he knows, but
he don't
he doesn't
acknowledge
acknowledge it. No. It's kind of like he'll walk by and act like he don't see me like that.
Right.
I'm like, damn man, it wasn't like that. So
funny.
yeah, I never would say who it was.
brother
But
was
that's when
embarrassed.
everyone was like, oh, like,
It's real.
okay, that's when it got around. Like
Mm-hmm.
she must be trying to do something, and then it got around to my dad.
Is this right? I got 1989 when you saw that fight, and you didn't have your first pro fight till 99. Was it 10?
October '99.
Wow. Okay. So I want to make sure I had that right. So you're doing the training little by little, and before you turn pro, you eventually finally talked to your father.
Yeah, my dad came to me and said, I hear you're boxing, because it got around. And I was like, yeah, I am. And he said, he basically tried to talk me out of it indirectly. He knew me. He's like, he can't just come out and say, don't do it. So he tried his reverse psychology. You know how hard this is going to be? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I know. I've thought about it. And it's like the same way as with my kids now. A child, they think they know and they don't. So I'm like, he's like, there's no way she can know. So I'm like, Dad, I thought this through. This is what I'm going to do. Well, what if you get knocked down? He's like, there's going to be lights on you. He's trying to build the picture. Like, do you understand? It's not like the gym. Like the pressure that's going to be on you, you're going to be walking to the ring. There's going to be all these lights. My dad was good at like painting a picture of scenes.
And your last name.
Yes, all that. And I said, I know. He's like, what you going to do if you get knocked down? I was like, I'm going to get back up just like you did. So he was just like, and I could see his hands starting to shake and him getting really upset. And he just was, I don't want you to do it. And he said, it's not for you. It's not for women. It's a man's sport.
Wow.
And I don't support it.
Wow.
And I kind of expected he was going to say that. Yeah. And I just said, I respect that, Dad, but I'm doing it anyway. I've already made my mind up. And I said, you don't have to support it. Mm-hmm. I'm telling him, like, I'm letting him know, if you don't want to support it publicly, I'm okay with that. Because I don't expect you to lie and act like you like it. Right. Like, because you have to have these talks, these behind the scenes talks. Yep. And I'm having this talk with the greatest of all time, who just told me, don't fight. It's not for you. And it's not even, I'm as a man and as a fighter, I'm listening to that, not just as my dad. And he's telling me as his daughter, I don't want you to do it. But at the moment, none of that meant anything to me because I was expected that. He didn't know anything about women's boxing. He didn't know, he wasn't a part of my training. But none of that mattered. He didn't want to see me get hurt. I'm his baby girl. Nobody wants to see their baby in a grimy gym. So it's understandable why he said all of that. And he did come back to me and apologize. At a certain point, he said, I was wrong. And this is after I got like my first world title. But he said, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize. Really? Yeah. He's like, and we cried and we hugged.
Oh, that's beautiful.
He said, I was wrong. You can fight. And he was like, and he started crying. He's like, you move like me and you jab like me. Yeah. And of course I started crying because I had told myself, I don't care what he thinks, because you have to put on your armor. I had to go fight. I couldn't worry about, was my dad going to be in the audience anytime I fought? I couldn't worry about who was coming, who was going to be there, what he was going to say publicly. I couldn't worry about any of that. I had to just, focus on me and getting in that ring, and that's what I did. I put my blinders on, and then if I see him after the fight, hey, Dad, but I never used to worry about, because he was sick too, and he couldn't be everywhere.
That took a lot of courage to jump in the game that late and Ali being your father. I mean, nobody who's ever fought knows what that feels like. Yeah,
and not only that, just doing everything under the lights. People get to the point where you're dreaming about having a belt, dreaming about having a name, dreaming about being the champ. Nobody's watching you though. People been watching me since day one. I remember when I first started and it became public that I was fighting, every female fighter that was anywhere near my weight class was dreaming about fighting me, how she was gonna whoop my ass and finally get some attention for herself, which made it fun. I love it.
When we get in the movie, because this movie stuff, this Hollywood stuff, this should be on the big screen. I know it's coming, but
there's time.
So you had your pro debut October 8th, 1999, and it lasted 50 seconds or something like that. And you wasn't happy about it. And here comes the media talking about, oh, this is a sideshow, and then she didn't fight nobody. You weren't happy about that. Like you wanted some competition.
Yeah. So the girl that I fought wasn't a competitive fight. I fought a girl, her name was April Fowler. She was 0-1. She had one fight more than I had. And I didn't know who I was fighting because at the time, my ex-husband was my promoter and he was a fighter. He had been a world champion at one point. And I can say I'm gonna do this, that, and the other. But he was like, what's she gonna do when she gets in that ring and those lights are on? This is her first fight ever. So I'm gonna make sure I put her in there with someone who cannot possibly beat her. I didn't know this.
Right.
I was in there like training for war. You know, I had been sparring.
It's the right mindset.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, she's 0-1. She lost her first and only fight. But then when I saw the girl at the weigh-in, I was just like, this girl got muffin top? You cannot come to fight me.
Don't come like that.
You cannot.
You feel
I have a
disrespected?
thing about that.
Ooh,
now.
really?
Even when I see fighters or athletes, especially fighters, because that was my sport, that don't look like they have their nutrition right, aren't training right. Because if you're working hard and doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to look a certain way.
Right.
You need to be lean, okay? I need to see all those muscles. I don't want to see hips, butt, none of that on girls.
Right.
I didn't have this when I was fighting.
Right.
So my thing is, I was just like, oh, no. But I still was like, oh, she really going to get it coming like that.
Come like that.
Like, you think you're going to beat me?
Right.
So anyway, long story short, yeah, it was, the girl was just like fighting like this. And I'm like, using my jab. And then as soon as I hit her with the right hand, a hard right hand, she drops. And I was just mad because I was just like, it's over so fast. You're ready for war and you're in the zone.
Trained all that long for that?
Yeah, there's a photo of me and I'm like, I don't even look happy. But I wasn't happy after many of my fights, and we can talk about that. But I got over it. But what I did walk away with was, I want the knockout.
Right.
I was like, I like going home early. So in my fights, I was trying to stop you, and that's a choice, that. Like, you don't have to, you can just box and play it safe.
But you had
I would
that
definitely
hunger,
take chances, yeah. And I had a few fights that didn't stop and knock out, but ever since that time, I always was trying to get the knockout.
Yeah. Now, after the fight, you start hearing some of the whispers, you see the headlines, and you said, I soon saw that the press would always be negative. They courted me because I was news. They liked my celebrity name and said I was pretty, but they resented me. You said, like a two-faced friend, the press loves and hates with equal passion. I thought that was heavy, but so true.
Yeah, absolutely. And, at the end of the day, like I said, I'm so honest to a fault that, like I said, I can look back now and be like, yeah, we called a bum back then. But it was an evenly matched fight. And I was that much better. And I can punch. You see what I'm saying? So that was going to happen eventually. But I think that because people were waiting for that moment, and they didn't know anything about women's boxing, and the girl, I'm telling you, she could not fight nothing. Like, she could not fight. I was just like, wow.
Right.
But
You find her.
it was hard, though, because in women's boxing, coming up, you had people who, it was hard to find something in the middle. And at my weight, at 168, it was the least amount of talent. And you find a lot of times in the lower weight classes, I think in men's and women's boxing, that you find more talent in terms of people throwing more punches, having to do more when they don't have as much power. Right. So like 135, 145, that was like a great, range for women. They had a lot of competition. Me, I was always like, damn, who am I gonna fight? And had to go look at their record and, someone who actually could give me a good fight, because a lot of the girls didn't need to be 168. They really need to diet down. There was only a handful of girls that were really like a real strong 168. And that was like, that was so boring to me, to get in there with some soft thing that's like, this is no fun. Give me somebody who can fight me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And
I would look forward to it, yeah.
So you're not only hearing these things from the media, but you said you also started experiencing and seeing the resentment from the other women.
Oh, yeah.
It's Ali's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Like, What type of things did you hear, type of things did you encounter at the time?
Well, I was getting all the attention that they wanted and didn't get. It's natural that people would be upset, then they've been working all this time and, they feel like I was getting all the attention. They couldn't wait to fight me. Everybody fought me 10 times harder. I was doing my research as well. But there was the girls, I was learning, I had just been introduced to the world of women's boxing. So there was like the Women's Boxing Network that Sue Fox has been doing for years. That's where you would go for women's boxing. So I'd be looking at girls like Bridget Baby Doll Riley and Kim Messer and Chevelle Hallback and, Alicia Ashley and all these girls who could fight, Layla McCarter, and they were like doing their thing. And I was like, wow. Then I came across Ann Wolfe and I was like, let me look at the girls in my weight class. And I was like, oh, okay. This is who I would eventually fight. And Valerie Mahfoud and Susie Taylor and all these names. So I'm watching them because I want belts. But I knew I had to work my way up to that point. But at the time, these girls start talking about me and, she ain't nothing and she this and she that. And I'm writing it all down because when I get a chance to actually face you, I'm gonna remember that because I like to have that be on edge. I like to, feel some kind of way about you because it makes me, it turns on my fire. Because sometimes when I look at someone, I'm like, this is gonna be easy. I need something. I need you to give me something.
Yeah. I understand the talk. Trust me. Like it's something in me. Like when you start talking like this, I start getting that thing. The fire starts to because I understand it.
Yeah. And guess what? We get to get in the ring.
Right.
What I don't like is when we have back and forth and we don't get to settle it.
Right.
Because as fighters, we get to settle it. So you can say what you want to say, right? But you're gonna have to back all that up.
That's what I always loved about boxing. Oh, he's saying, did you see what your opponent said? We have a date that's set, and we're gonna show and tell in front of the whole world. Somebody gonna be wrong, somebody gonna be right.
Say whatever you want to say.
So you fought Jackie Frazier, and this was the first women's main event on the pay-per-view card. And she was chirping a lot, but did you think she really could do anything with you from a skill standpoint?
So Jackie was inspired by my career to start fighting. I didn't take her seriously because she was always running her mouth loud, and I was like, oh, Lord. And then at the time, it was, because personally, I was still trying to prove I was serious. So I felt like she was taking away, making it like a circus. This is what I felt, okay?
Feeding into the noise.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah. So I was irritated by her, but she kept fighting. She kept fighting, she was winning. And then came a time where it was time for us to fight. I could make some money. It just made sense to do. I was like, she's not a champion. I don't take her serious. And I remember my ex-husband was like, no, you're gonna have this fight. And I was like, okay,
Frazier.
fine. Yes, Ali Frazier. So I did not take her seriously. I was like, I'm gonna knock her out, because she was kind of wild. She wasn't as refined as me. And I'm still learning, mind you. We're talking about someone who didn't have any amateur fights.
That's crazy.
You could see that I could fight. I had the raw, natural skill and all that, but there was levels to it, right? So I'm at a very low level still. But you see the qualities, but she was kind of more wild, and I was just kind of like, okay. But that's even harder to fight.
It is.
It's harder to fight, especially when you haven't really established your jab like it needs to be. It wasn't really where it needed to be, any of that. And I was fighting too much. I wasn't disciplined enough to box. So it was a scrap. And I got the flu. I got the flu.
Before the fight?
Before the fight, I got the flu. But because I thought it was gonna be easy, and because it was our promotion, our husbands, I was like, I'm not backing out. I'm gonna get her out of there in 3 rounds. Man, by the 3rd round, I was exhausted. I did not sit down. If anyone was to watch it, I didn't sit down because I was like, if I sit down, my legs were so weak, I had no power. It was literally like, I have to keep going, I have to keep going. But my punches didn't have any power on them. And yeah, after the 3rd round, I tried to stop her. She spit her mouthpiece out. And next thing I knew, I was like, that's all I had. So, I kept going, but I tried to put that power on her, but then I didn't have any more, so it went the distance. Yeah, but I won.
But you ended up beating Jackie, and then in your 16th bout, how did you end up in the ring with the woman that inspired you to fight Christy Martin? How did that happen?
Well, Christy started calling me out.
Oh, my goodness.
Christy started calling me out, and that's what I said. God, don't.
Oh, my goodness.
Because I had been called out a couple times. Holly Holm called me out. Yeah, back in the day. I was like, why are these little broads trying to call me out?
Where they coming from?
Yeah, like, she's too small. So, but then Christy, yeah, it's true, But Christy, on the other hand, I was ignoring her for a while. And then somebody put some money on the table. And then the public started saying they thought she could do something. And I'm like, what? So I came down, she came up. She probably, I think she weighed in fully clothed, had stuff in her pockets. I know that she didn't have a respect level for me. Like, she really thought she could beat me. Because Christy's tough, and Christy can punch. but not for my weight.
Right.
Cause she hit me with one of her hardest right hands. I was like, damn. But it was kind of made me want to smile. Like, damn, you can punch, girl. Like for your size. But then of course I kept going at her, and she lasted. I think what round did I stop her in? Like
I'm not
five,
sure.
4, 5 or something like that. But anyway,
But she tough though.
She was
The
tough. She
coal
had a
miner's
hard
daughter.
head.
That's what they used to
She
call
was
her.
tough, and she took a knee. Like I didn't just knock her out. Like, and I think it was coming, but her corner, now I know, told her to stay down. That's what she says. Yeah, but me and Christy are cool now.
I was
like
gonna ask
said.
you, y'all
Oh yeah,
good?
yeah. No, we're cool. We have a certain respect for each other.
Well, I know you've been asked this a gazillion times, but the short version, like, why did the Ann Wolfe fight didn't take place? I mean, it was talked about. You have your view, she has hers. Why did that fight happen?
I have lost so much sleep over that because, no, literally, I wanted to fight her so bad. When I say so bad, because you're only as good as the people you fight. Why is there 2 fighters that are great fighters that never fought each other? Why did in my weight class all the top fighters didn't fight each other? You had 4 of us. You had me, you had Ann, you had Letitia Robinson was a good fighter.
Okay.
I wanted to fight her because she had an amateur career. She could box. Then there was Natasha Ragosina. So none of us have fought each other, okay? Of course, everyone says it's me. But usually if it's me, you guys will be fighting each other, right? But there's a thing with these women, like, you gotta step up, okay? Step up. You're not gonna be able to just, I'm the best, and don't fight each other. But the long and short of it is, Anne finally said it herself when she did an interview, because we actually were finally going to fight. She was on the undercard of, who was it? When I fought Christy, she fought Valerie Mafood.
I remember that.
We put her on the undercard because that was gonna be the lead up to our fight. I'm not gonna put you on the undercard not to fight you. Then she pulled out after that, wanting more money. And then she did an interview on ESPN where she finally said they were trying to pay me X amount of dollars, it wasn't enough money. I said, thank you. Can you finally just say, why haven't we fought? It's not me. So I wanted that fight so bad. I
wanted to see
actually,
it
after
too.
I know, it would have been a great fight. It would have been a great fight.
I want to see
It would
that.
have been a great fight. It doesn't make any sense that it didn't happen.
It's like that sometimes. You had a great career and you eventually retired February 2nd. Well, your last fight was February 2nd, 2007. You finished your career 24-0 with 21 knockouts and you never fought again. Why then? Why retire then?
There wasn't anything left. I started to say earlier, I had so much frustration in my boxing career because I feel very unfulfilled. Because I didn't get to fight the best fights, okay? And I had to deal with the public saying it's me. And I am so not no punk.
Right. We know.
Never.
Right.
That is the worst thing you could say about me
Yeah.
because my character is so important to me. Like I will take a whooping or get knocked out before I be a punk to just not face somebody, like in a sport. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing for me that made it hard, like to be training at an elite level, okay? With Roger Mayweather, Floyd Mayweather, Buddy McGirt, people like that, okay? And have to face people who I'm like, it's like a pro team facing a high school team. So what, I beat her. So it's like a lot of times I would go into these fights like, man, because you have to defend your titles.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I've had girls that I've called. I remember I fought at Madison Square Garden once, and I was trying to get this girl named Ajoma Bujani, and she was like 10-1. She was tall, and I was like, she'd be great. She wouldn't take the fight. I called her. I was like, can you please? She's like, the sanctioning fees are too much. I said, I'll pay your sanctioning fees.
Right.
And then she comes to the fight after the fight at the press conference and starts complaining, saying that, they tried to do X, Y, and Z. I said, I got so mad. I mean, I was cussing because I was like, this is what I've been dealing with. Yeah. Now you're going to come here and say, like, I wouldn't give you an opportunity. Did I not call you and offer to pay your sanctioning fee? She said, yeah. My husband was like, if I were her, I'd been like, no. Like, what fighter does that? But it's me, So that was what I was dealing with, Andre. And I was just like, how am I going to keep fighting when there's no girls left to fight, and to keep training? And I wanted to start a family. I met Curtis. I was ready to settle down. I couldn't, and like you said, keep fighting for what? I was ready to just kind of start doing other things.
Now, you made a phenomenal transition. Phenomenal. And it's something that needs to be studied and looked at because, again, we talked about this before the cameras turned on about how, your boxing career is getting further and further in the rearview mirror, the further you go with all the different things that you got involved. And it's like, that's what people, fighters and athletes should aspire to do. We love the sports part, but that was just a part of my life, you know? And I just appreciate the example you've been and how you've taken that same tenacity, that same drive, that same focus and built some other things. So, a quick one though, what's been the hardest part of retiring? I know that the competition wasn't there, but what's hard about walking away from something like that?
What's hard about it is doing something you love, putting your all into it, because I loved boxing. Like, I was that fighter who was always in the gym, even when it wasn't a fight. You know, I moved to Las Vegas to train with Roger Mayweather. You know, I was always trying to better myself, you know, and knowing that this is going to be a legacy, regardless of what people think of me, or what boxing fans think who believe the drama and the noise. This is going to go down in history books. So I don't want to have any regrets, but I can't make people fight me. I can't make people, you know, be honest. I can't do any of that. So I was just like, I had to just let go. So it didn't feel good leaving. It didn't feel, you know, like I'd accomplished anything. And the belts were never super important to me. I think I even have 5 titles. I always say I have 4 because I have 1 at light heavyweight, but the 4 are at super middleweight. But I'm just saying, because it's like, who did you win the titles from? Who did you defend them against? I went into the sport to be undefeated. I never was like, I need to be the best, because it's a matter of opinion. What I have control over is being undefeated. I have control over making sure I don't lose. That's a possibility. You know, there's always going to be someone who's going to come behind you, going to build on the game, and someone's going to think it's better or whatever the case may be. So I don't really care about public opinion when it comes to that. Only public opinion I care about is when it comes to my character, you know, because I'm absolutely one of those people who always wanted to face the best. And unfortunately, I was in a weight class that there just wasn't a whole lot. There just wasn't a whole lot to choose from. So I came to a standstill. So it wasn't fun. It didn't feel good leaving the way that I had to leave. But what can I do? You have to let go because that's too much weight to carry.
That's right. That's right. Man, Muhammad Ali on June 3rd, 2016, at 74 years old, after valiantly battling Parkinson's for 35 years, he passed away. How did his death affect you in the few years after, and then even to this day? Like, what's the impact?
I was prepared, and because I watched my father struggle for so many years, where Parkinson's will take away your motor skills, can't talk, you know what I mean, can't eat by himself, not using the bathroom by himself. So I more felt that he was free.
Okay.
When he passed away, he was free to be himself again, you know, in heaven, wherever that may be. And, you know, of course, we're all going to miss him. We're all going to be sad. But I felt like, you know, he was going to be in a happier place.
How did you feel just seeing that, the outpouring of love?
Oh, man, it was expected. It was expected that my father would get that love, and he expected it.
Yeah.
But before he passed away, he was like, look, we need to have the funeral. It was all planned at a place big enough for all the people that want to come. He wanted to make sure.
He talked about that?
Oh, yeah, it was a book this thick, it planned. Oh, yeah.
About his funeral?
Yeah.
Oh,
How
my
it need
goodness.
to be. Like, it needs to be like an arena. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely. It's like everybody's gonna want to come, so we need space. Oh yeah, and they still couldn't fit.
Wow.
Oh, he was a funny man.
Oh my goodness, I never would have thought about that. You've always had a heart for the younger generation, and you do a lot that people don't see. You have conversations that people are unaware of, and I'm asking because I love seeing the older generation connect with the younger generation. I hate, and I'm gonna use that word, I hate when I see the disconnect between generations. The older generation, they hating, they don't understand, it's like, bro, I done been where you going.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like when the older generation are so disconnected from the younger generation that they just don't even try. But it is tricky, because it's 2 different eras, 2 different mindsets. You and Claressa Shields, and I talked to her yesterday and kind of got an idea of what her perspective of the situation happened. But man, y'all seem to have started off good, and then something went awry. What happened with you and Claressa?
You know, I think that, like you said, I'm somebody that is open to being connected in terms of giving people advice when they come to me for it. Claressa was one of those people who reached out to me when I think it was after she won the Olympics the first time. I commentated the Olympics. I was aware of who she was.
Okay.
She reached out to me somehow and asked me advice about should she go to the Olympics again? Should she go pro? And I remember telling her, like, there ain't nothing in 168. You know what I'm saying? Like, she told me she was doing good in school. I asked her about herself. She was really smart. You know, I said, I would do the Olympics again, and then I would go to school and do something else. Like, I'm thinking she's gonna use the Olympics and catapult into something else. You know what I'm saying? But, because I was like, at 168, there's nothing.
In the pros.
In the pros, I said, you ain't gonna make no real money there. I said, but if you do go pro, go down. I had a lengthy conversation about that, because you go down to like 58, 47, because I'm looking at her. And I told her, I said, you can do it. If you diet down, if you get a nutritionist, I'm looking at your body. I said, because when I was 168, I was a lean 168. I couldn't get any smaller. I'm 200 pounds right now, Andre. So I'm saying I'm a big girl. People don't realize, like, physically, I got big hands, I got big feet, I'm big. So I was telling her, you're not big like me, so you can come down. So that was my advice to her. And then we stayed in touch. You know, she would hit me before her fights. And I just remember going and promoting a cookbook and my cookbook and going on the Breakfast Club. And you asked me what happened.
I remember that.
And they asked me about Claressa, like they asked me about women's boxing. I said nice things about her, like I always did. And then they ended up asking me, would I ever come back? And I said, there's no reason to. I said, I don't see anybody there that inspires me to want to come back. I was like, there's so much I would have to stop doing, you know, that I would have to do. So I guess, well, I know that she heard that and took offense to it. And then next thing I know, she's on YouTube saying, Laila Ali was on, you know, she said it out of her own mouth. Like, she heard me say there was nobody that she was inspired by that she felt could give her competition. I feel some kind of way. So then she started calling me out. And I was like, wow. So first thing I thought, because I'm the type of person, I would just pick up the phone. Like, you would think she'd pick up the phone, but I know this newer generation, like you said, is different. But now you took it public, and she was always the one calling me anyway. So I wasn't about to call her and say, hey, what's going on? I was just like, okay, that's where she decided to go with it. So then, of course, now, you know, the public is, they're gonna exasperate it.
They're gonna spin it.
And then the next time I do another interview, at that point, she had already, you know, talked about me, and she started putting stuff on her social media page. She ain't never fought nobody. She ain't never, you know, she basically was trying to degrade my legacy and everything that I had done. And I was like, oh, okay, wow, that you crossing a line now. You can think you can beat me.
I see the look in your eyes. I see you going there.
I'm just saying, you can think that.
Right.
That's fine. You're supposed to think that.
Yeah, of course.
But to start going in on my legacy and what I have and haven't done and all these things, I was like, wow, that's a lot, you know? So that's kind of what happened. I think that fans don't like it, because fans are like, man, we love both of y'all. You know, why does it have to be this way? So again, that's pretty much how it happened. And that for me is like, there's just certain things that are not okay with me. It's hard to come back from. And again, I don't have any hard feelings against Claressa in general, because I got a lot going on over here, you already know, to be worried about any of these young girls like that. But at the same time, I see that she gets into it with a lot of people. She gets into it with a lot of female fighters. She gets into it with male fighters. So obviously that's a thing for her. Hopefully she'll figure that out, because you're not gonna get very far in this life if you continue burning bridges. And even though she's not someone that I consider a friend, hopefully that's some advice that she would take, because you're gonna see a lot of people surpass you. Even though you're talented, even though you can say, oh, I won all these belts and I went to the Olympics, I did X, Y, and Z. So never think too big of yourself, right? Because there's always gonna be somebody. You gotta really watch your character. You gotta stay humble. And, you know, hopefully you don't burn so many bridges along the way, you don't come back from it, because you wanna use these opportunities right now when you have it. It's great that you're doing all these things, and you wanna be a role model to those coming behind you.
Of course.
And you want the fans to like you. You want to be a likable person. You know, I know there's a movie coming out on her, which is great. She's been through so much, you know, but guess what? A lot of us have. So it's no excuse. We need to do better. And to me, it's really important. It's really important how I carry myself. It's really important how I represent myself, how I represent women, how I represent Black women, how I represent fighters, how I represent my father, how I represent myself, how I'm a woman, a mother, a wife. I don't have time to be over here going back and forth with somebody over no BS. So, like I was hesitant to even talk to you about it because we already know people grab onto that. You know what I'm saying? This isn't about who can win, who can fight. Claressa knows I offered her sparring. She knows. She knows she didn't want to spar with me. That would have been the moment to whoop me. That would have been the moment because we know we would have had our social media.
Yeah.
That would have been your moment to do your thing. So we don't want to hear nothing else about it now. No more. Because there's so many more opportunities out there, but you just got to go about them the right way.
Is there a way back for y'all?
I can't be a negative person and ever say that there's not a way back. You never want to have an enemy, especially someone in the sport, especially two people who can have an impact. There's so many people who can relate to Claressa, her story, where she came from, that can never relate to me. So whoever it is that you can relate to, that can inspire you, that's wonderful, that's great. But like I said, it's really hard to come back from someone trying to diminish your legacy. And, it's not going to just happen by just, squashing it. Like if you felt some kind of way that hurt your feelings or hurt you deeply and you want to, come back to me and talk it through, then I'm gonna have to know where you were coming from. It definitely ain't gonna just be like, we just gonna forget about it. I'm not saying someone has to be like, sorry, Laila, but come on. This all started because of an interview. You heard me say something and you assume I'm jealous of you. It's like, you gotta take the blinders off.
Well, I'm hoping that one day y'all can have a meeting of the minds and have a conversation because y'all have different upbringings and lifestyles, but y'all got some overlap too. Y'all both have had troublesome times. Y'all had to fight through some things, different roads, but trouble, and it needs to be a lot of perseverance along the way.
And so have you.
Yes.
So that means nothing to me, Andre. What
But
you
I
just
mean,
said. I'm just saying.
I'm not saying as an excuse.
I can
I'm
relate
saying
to so many different people
that's true.
on that level. So that's
Yeah.
not. But I got where you were trying.
But
to.
I'm
Are you trying to
saying-
be Dr. Phil here? No.
Dr. Dre. But no, this how my mind
I'm gonna let you
works.
have your moment. I'm sorry.
Let me have my moment.
Yes.
So I'm going to hold out hope because I do see the overlap. And I do see two young ladies that came from different but difficult backgrounds. And y'all have made tremendous names for yourselves. And so I'm going to hold out hope that one day.
Keep that hope alive, brother.
Yes, I will. And I'm going to ask, I don't need the details, but was a potential fight with y'all, was that real?
I think that when I said that I'd be willing to fight for the right amount of money, I definitely got some phone calls.
Okay.
And if that money would have came about back then, not now.
Well, I'm hoping for peace, so I'm gonna leave that right there. What's next for Laila Ali? What can we be looking out for?
I mentioned I'm gonna be back doing some TV. I took some time away. I moved from California to Georgia and been focusing on my brands. I'm gonna get ready to do some more TV in the food space. Like I told you, strategic for me. I got my Laila Ali Spice Blends, which is my brand. I'm
We
always
appreciate the spices, by the way.
You're
me and my
welcome.
wife. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm always trying to, use whatever platform I can to keep that going. And just really keeping family first, keeping God first, like I said, and just navigating this world. It's a lot going on out here. But I look at the big picture of things and just, how I want to leave this world when I'm gone and the legacy that I leave behind for my children. So that's a big part of my focus.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you for the conversation. And I want to appreciate everybody for tuning in to another episode of the Art Award. Man, y'all go get this book, Reach. It was written a while ago, but it's principles in there, and it's a story that's very, very relevant to this day. Go get that book and go look up Laila Ali if you haven't already. She, like I said, she can sell you some supplements. She got cookware, she got spices, she got everything you need. Go check her out. Go support her. She's doing some great things. I appreciate you guys for tuning in for another episode.